Welcome back. Long time no update. It's been a while, and let me just talk a little bit about what's been going on. I removed all my rock. I had to do so to get rid of this freaking sand bed here. I had to chisel the stuff away, chisels, screwdrivers, jackhammers, you name it. It was obviously, as you can see, just molded onto my rock. This is what happens when you don't take care of a sand bed. As you can see, the rocks here too are just caked with algae. So I decided I would dip them in a peroxide solution. This is like cement. I was thinking I'd find a bobbit worm or crab frozen in carbonite or something like that. I've been slacking on my husbandry. The sand bed was pretty deep, and when you have tons of rocks piled up in there, it's a little bit hard to kind of get to it. So I decided to dip my base rock in a peroxide / saltwater solution. I had some pallies in there, some Texas trash pallies that I really didn't like. They were pretty nasty. So I had them soaking in this peroxide solution for a while. The algae was sloughing off and the pallies were getting soft. So I basically put my hand in the 5-gallon bucket and kind of rubbed them off. I was not wearing gloves. Later on, I was playing video games. It was my night off. I had a little bit of wheezing, and I had some massive chills. Mind you, it was June in San Antonio, so it was 100 degrees out, and I was freezing. I went to bed, was all achy the next day, called into work. And then the next day I went to work, and I had this little nick on my hand. By that time, it grew rapidly. There was purulent drainage. The swelling and redness had just increased. So I checked in to the doctor. They put me on Keflex, doxycycline, and Levaquin. So, I assumed it was a paleothoa toxin that I inhaled and got into my wound. Here's a tank now that happened after all the cleaning. As you can see, I didn't add as many rocks back into the tank. They look clean for the most part. Flow's improved. And I left a space behind all the rocks so I can get to the sand bed. Oh yeah, I added a new sand bed. Looks much more white, not so deep, and I can just get like a turkey baster and blow off the sand bed. Make sure it doesn't get all stagnant and hard like the other one. The green people eaters have a lot of algae in them. I didn't dip that rock in particular because there was a stylo on there, and I didn't know if the SPS would really handle the dip. So a few days later, the polyps are back. Maybe a week later, the colors returned. Obviously, it looks pretty sick, so I clipped off the tips, and I fragged those on the plugs and chucked the rest of the coral. And they're doing well. The algae on the people eaters, it was able to come off pretty easily. The Sunset Monty, the color on that returned as well. You can see some algae patches on it, and I pulled that off with tweezers easily. I actually sold that piece. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then we have the Monty cap. The Monty cap doesn't look so great, but it's looked worse before. I think it'll be fine. There's a little bit of pink color to it. There are some polyps, and I think it'll bounce back. What just happened? Alright, so there was a big hailstorm in Texas here in June, and a roof got damaged. While it was being replaced, the roofers nicked a water line, destroyed some drywall, and you guessed it, the floors. The wooden floors, 1,000 square feet, all have to be ripped up and replaced. So, basically I took my tank down. I took all the rocks, put them in a brute garbage can in my garage, sold my corals, sold my fish, and drained the tank. It's been several months now. Construction still hasn't taken place. A lot of it's dealing with insurance companies and contractors. We finally had the drywall placed. We picked out floors. They're to be installed soon. So the tank has been empty for several months, maybe 4 or 5. So I actually sold the tank. I still have the rock, and I'm going to sell that also. I'm going to keep the Apex and some of the other stuff, but I really don't want to move the tank into the garage and then move it back, and potentially we may move also in several months. There's something kind of therapeutic on just looking at the rock in, in this container, because that's my aquarium. I added lights to it to kind of regrow some of the coralline algae, and actually a lot of the yellow sponge is coming back, so that's kind of cool. All sorts of life, copepods, so it's kind of my reef tank. So actually I'm going to buy another tank. I'm going to buy a small tank this time, maybe like a Reef or 250, just something small that if we do move I can just pack it up easy, put it back in the box and move from there. So stay tuned for the next build.